Elias Thorne wasn't your typical philosopher. He didn't lecture from grand halls or publish in obscure journals. He lived in a modest suburban home, tending to his chickens and wrestling with the complexities of modern life. His neighbors knew him as a quiet man, always willing to lend a hand or an egg. But Elias was waging a war against giants, against the leviathans of our time. These weren't mythical sea creatures, but rather the sprawling systems of power and control that dominate our lives. Elias saw these leviathans everywhere in the crushing weight of debt, the suffocating grip of bureaucracy, and the erosion of individual sovereignty. He spent his days contemplating these issues, scribbling notes in the margins of used books, and debating with the chickens, who seemed to be his most attentive audience. His battleground wasn't a physical one. It was fought in the realm of ideas, in the quiet defiance of questioning the status quo. Elias believed that the key to slaying these modern leviathans lay in understanding their origins. Just as ancient sailors spun tales of terrifying sea monsters, we've constructed narratives around debt, governance, and justice that often obscure more than they reveal. Elias felt that by unraveling these narratives, by exposing the mechanisms by which power operates, we could begin to dismantle these leviathans and reclaim our collective agency. At the heart of Elias's philosophy was the concept of sovereignty. He believed that the idea of we the people had become diluted, a distant echo of its original intent. The power dynamics had shifted, with individuals increasingly beholden to vast and impersonal entities, corporations, governments, financial institutions. These modern leviathans, he argued, had usurped the power that rightfully belonged to the people. He saw this most clearly in the erosion of economic sovereignty. People were trapped in cycles of debt, their lives dictated by interest rates and credit scores. The promise of upward mobility, the cornerstone of the American dream, seemed increasingly out of reach. Elias recognized that true freedom required more than just political rights. It demanded economic agency, the ability to shape one's destiny free from the shackles of debt. He often lamented the irony of a system that claimed to champion individual liberty while simultaneously trapping its citizens in a web of financial obligation. The founding fathers, he argued, had fought for freedom from tyranny, but they could never have envisioned a world where people were enslaved by algorithms and credit scores. Debt, Elias believed, was the most insidious of the modern leviathans. It was a silent predator, slowly draining the lifeblood from individuals and communities. He saw the predatory lending practices, the exorbitant interest rates, and the lack of meaningful debt relief as symptoms of a system rigged against the average person. He often spoke about the biblical concept of jubilee, a periodic cancellation of debts designed to prevent widespread economic disparity. This ancient practice, he argued, recognized the inherent imbalances of power in any economic system. By periodically resetting the scales, Jubilee offered a chance for renewal, a way to break free from the cycle of debt and start anew. Elias found it deeply unjust that corporations could declare bankruptcy and receive massive bailouts, while individuals struggling with student loans or medical debt were offered little to no relief. The system, he argued, had been designed to protect the powerful and perpetuate their advantage. Section 4. Challenging presumptions. One of Elias's core beliefs was the importance of challenging presumptions. He saw how easily we accept the narratives presented to us, rarely questioning the underlying assumptions that shape our world. This was particularly true when it came to the legal system. He often used the example of legal presumptions, such as the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. While these presumptions were essential to a just legal system, Elias argued that they could also be used to obscure injustice. He pointed to the legal framework surrounding debt, where the presumption often fell in favor of the lender, even in cases of predatory lending or unfair debt collection practices. Elias believed that real justice required constantly questioning these presumptions, ensuring that they served their intended purpose of protecting the vulnerable rather than perpetuating systems of oppression. He often reminded people that the law was a tool, and like any tool, it could be used for good or for evil. Section 5. The power of small acts. Despite the seemingly insurmountable nature of these challenges, Elias remained cautiously optimistic. He believed that change was possible not through grand gestures or revolutions, but through the accumulation of small, deliberate acts of defiance. He saw hope in the everyday heroes, the single mothers fighting for better schools, the activists demanding environmental justice, the neighbors helping neighbors in times of need. These acts of resistance, he argued, were like cracks in the armor of the Leviathans. Each act, no matter how small, chipped away at the systems of power, creating space for new possibilities to emerge. He often reminded people that even the mightiest oak tree starts as a tiny seed, and that even the most formidable Leviathan could be toppled with enough collective effort. Elias found hope in the resilience of the human spirit, in our innate capacity for empathy, compassion, and collective action. He believed that by reclaiming our sovereignty, challenging unjust presumptions, and supporting one another, we could create a more just and equitable world. Section 6. Eggshells and Bureaucracy. Elias often drew parallels between his chickens and the Leviathans he railed against. The chickens, confined to their coop, represented individuals trapped within bureaucratic systems. Just as the chickens pecked at the bars, seeking an escape from their enclosure, people often felt stifled by the impersonal rules and regulations that governed their lives. He would meticulously document his interactions with various government agencies, marveling at the absurdity of the paperwork, the endless phone calls, and the general lack of common sense. He saw these bureaucratic nightmares as a form of modern-day labyrinth, designed to confuse and exhaust those who dared to navigate them. One particularly frustrating encounter involved trying to obtain a permit for a new chicken coop door. The process, which involved multiple forms, inspections, and fees, took several months and left Elias questioning the sanity of it all. Yet he persevered, meticulously documenting every step, turning his experience into a satirical commentary on the absurdity of modern bureaucracy. Section 7. Breakfast Burrito Revolution. Despite his frustration with the Leviathans, Elias never succumbed to despair. He found joy in the simple things, tending to his garden, sharing stories with his neighbors, and of course, his chickens. He believed that true freedom lay in appreciating the small victories and finding moments of beauty and connection amidst the chaos. He had a morning ritual of making breakfast burritos using fresh eggs from his chickens and vegetables from his garden. It was a simple act, but for Elias, it represented a quiet rebellion against the Leviathans of mass production and consumerism. He took pride in knowing where his food came from, in the act of creation, in nourishing himself and those around him. Elias often joked that his breakfast burritos were his small contribution to a revolution fueled by mindful consumption, community building, and a healthy dose of humor. He believed that by focusing on what we could control, our own actions, our communities, our connection to the natural world, we could begin to dismantle the Leviathans one bite at a time.